Imagine this. You wake up to a quiet, suburban neighborhood. Everything seems normal, until you find out that your next-door neighbor, who everyone calls that HOA Karen, has dug an enormous tunnel right under her property. No one knows why, and the mystery only deepens when rumors start to spread about what might be hidden underground. As the neighbors get curious and the community buzzes with questions, things take a serious turn. The local authorities show up, then the National Guard, and before long, the army is involved. But why? Who is this woman, and what could possibly be so important that it requires military intervention? Could she be onto something huge, or is this just another wild attempt to bend the rules of her HOA? In this video, we're diving deep into the bizarre story of how a suburban neighborhood turned into a war zone over a tunnel. We'll uncover the secrets, the tension, and the wild plot twists that no one could have predicted. Stay tuned, because you won't believe what they find down there. To understand how things got this far, we need to go back to the beginning. It all started with Cindy Matthews, the woman the neighbors jokingly referred to as the HOA Karen. She had been on the Homeowners Association board for years, always pushing for stricter rules and regulations. Her obsession with perfect lawns, pristine fences, and noise levels was known to everyone in the community. But when she decided to build a shed in her backyard, things took a strange turn. Most people would have just built a small storage space, maybe a garden tool shed, but Cindy had other plans. She was meticulous, always ensuring that every detail was in compliance with HOA rules. But it wasn't long before her neighbors began to notice something odd. The shed wasn't just a shed, it was massive, and it seemed like she was digging around it, day after day, always sneaking around in the early hours of the morning, when no one was looking. Curiosity turned into concern when the ground near her backyard started to shift. It didn't take long for whispers to spread, rumors about the tunnel. Some said it was a secret escape route. Others wondered if she had built it to hide something from the authorities. But Cindy wasn't talking, and no one could get a straight answer. That was until the military showed up one morning, surrounding her property with trucks and equipment, and then the real mystery began. What was she hiding, and why did the army need to be involved? As the days passed, the neighborhood buzzed with an unsettling mix of fear and curiosity. The army had set up a perimeter, blocking off the street and keeping everyone at a distance. Neighbors who had once been on good terms with Cindy now felt a strange distance from her. No one could understand why she'd been so secretive, why she hadn't said anything about the tunnel. Mike, who lived across the street, had always been skeptical of Cindy's extreme dedication to the HOA. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about her recent behavior. A former engineer, he started to take notes, watching Cindy's property from his window. It didn't take long for him to realize that the tunnel was far bigger than it appeared. His gut told him this wasn't just about a personal project gone too far. It was something bigger, something that involved more than just a neighbor's eccentricity. Meanwhile, Emily, a local journalist who had been living in the area for years, caught wind of the growing tension and decided to investigate. She interviewed several residents, each one telling a slightly different story, yet all were pointing to the same eerie conclusion. Cindy wasn't just building a tunnel for herself. Some believed she had uncovered something buried beneath the earth, something ancient. Others whispered that the army's involvement meant they were searching for something dangerous. As Emily dug deeper into Cindy's background, she discovered that Cindy's obsession with perfection and control had deep roots. She had grown up in a strict, militaristic household where everything had to be precise, calculated, and orderly. Cindy's behavior had always been extreme, but this felt different. There was something in her past that no one knew about, something she'd hidden from everyone. With each new revelation, the tension in the neighborhood escalated. The military had brought in specialists, and the digging seemed to intensify. The mystery of Cindy's tunnel was no longer just a strange, isolated event. It was something far more complex, and the whole town was on edge, waiting to see what would happen next. Could Cindy have unearthed something powerful, or was she simply unraveling under the pressure of her own obsessions? Only time would tell, but it was clear that the secrets buried under her backyard would change everything. As the days wore on, the sense of unease in the neighborhood reached a boiling point. The military presence grew stronger, with armed vehicles parked outside Cindy's home and soldiers moving in and out of the property at all hours. Residents, who once lived peaceful, predictable lives, now found themselves caught in a whirlwind of questions, fears, and rumors. Every time someone tried to get closer, the soldiers tightened the perimeter, ensuring no one could learn more. Mike couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The more he watched, the more he saw the army bringing in new equipment, sophisticated tools and vehicles that suggested they were preparing for something huge. He could see the uncertainty on their faces too. Even they didn't seem to know exactly what they were dealing with. It made him question everything he thought he knew about Cindy and the tunnel. Could she really have stumbled upon something so dangerous, something worth risking everything for? Emily, the journalist, was becoming obsessed. She kept going back to Cindy's past, piecing together fragmented stories from neighbors who had known her as a child. There were rumors about her father, a former military officer who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. Could Cindy have inherited more than just a love for control? Maybe there was something in her bloodline that made her think she was destined to uncover hidden truths, no matter the cost. The more Emily uncovered, the more she realized she was on the verge of something that could change everything. But she was running out of time. Everyone was. One evening, as the sun set over the quiet neighborhood, a loud noise echoed from Cindy's property. It was unlike anything the neighborhood had heard before, an explosion, but muffled, as if something deep underground had given way. The ground trembled slightly, sending a wave of panic through the residents. For a brief moment, everyone stood frozen, unsure whether to run or stay. And then, as if on cue, the army moved in with more urgency. Soldiers scrambled, barking orders, their faces tight with determination. The mood shifted from tense to full-blown chaos. It felt as if the calm facade of the neighborhood had completely shattered. Inside her house, Cindy was nowhere to be seen. She had vanished. The soldiers combed the area, but there was no sign of her. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air, taking her secrets with her. The tunnel was still there, though, and it was deeper than ever. Whatever was down there, whatever Cindy had been looking for, the army was about to find it. But the question remained, would they be ready for whatever it was? Or had they underestimated what they were dealing with? Everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the next move, the next clue that might explain it all. The air was thick with anticipation, and no one knew who or what would emerge from the darkness. The silence after the explosion was deafening. Neighbors peeked out from their windows, too afraid to venture outside. The military had barricaded the entire street, their movements swift and purposeful. Everyone's eyes were on the tunnel, which had now become the epicenter of the chaos. But what no one knew, not even the army, was that the ground beneath Cindy's property wasn't the only thing shifting. Something else was happening, something they weren't prepared for. As the soldiers dug deeper into the hole, there was another tremor. This time, it was much stronger. The ground cracked wide open, sending a shower of dirt and debris into the air. Panic erupted. It wasn't just a tunnel anymore. It was a sinkhole, one that seemed to grow with every passing minute. A deep, menacing rumble echoed from below, and then, out of nowhere, the sound of machinery grinding to life. The army stopped dead in their tracks. They had underestimated the situation. This wasn't just a tunnel. It was an ancient system, a hidden complex buried far deeper than anyone had imagined. Emily, who had been standing at the edge of the perimeter, felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. The ground beneath her feet seemed to pulse, as though the earth itself was alive. She didn't know what to make of it, but she felt certain now that Cindy wasn't the only one who had known about this place. Whatever it was too big, too dangerous for anyone to fully understand. The soldiers tried to reinforce their positions, but the structure of the tunnel had begun to collapse in on itself. A few of them were pulled back quickly, shouting commands, trying to contain the panic spreading among the ranks. But it wasn't just fear of the unknown that gripped them now. It was the realization that something had been buried here for a reason. A sense of urgency shot through the air, as if the very world itself was holding its breath. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Emily saw something. A shadow. A figure. It was Cindy. She was standing at the edge of the sinkhole, watching the army struggle, her expression unreadable. Emily couldn't believe her eyes. How had she gotten there? How had she known this would happen? Cindy turned her head slowly, locking eyes with Emily for just a moment before she disappeared into the shadows. The tension in the air was palpable. Something monumental was unfolding, but no one could quite grasp the full picture. The army's frantic attempts to control the situation only made things worse. Whatever Cindy had unleashed, whatever had been hidden for decades, it was coming to the surface. And the question now was, would anyone survive it? The tension in the air was suffocating as the army scrambled to control the collapsing sinkhole. The ground beneath them continued to tremble, and the deep rumbling sound grew louder. It was as if something ancient was awakening, something that had been buried for far too long. Soldiers were retreating, and panic was spreading throughout the perimeter. But amidst the chaos, Emily couldn't tear her eyes away from the shadowy figure at the edge of the sinkhole. Cindy was still there, standing still, almost as if she were waiting for something. Emily rushed toward the hole, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to find out what Cindy knew, what had driven her to dig this tunnel, and why she seemed so calm while everything around her was falling apart. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the shouting soldiers, and finally caught up to Cindy, who was now standing at the very edge of the sinkhole, gazing down into the depths below. "You knew this was going to happen, didn't you?" Emily asked, her voice a mix of disbelief and anger. "You knew about all of this. You knew the military would come. Why didn't you tell anyone?" Cindy turned slowly, a faint smile crossing her face. "I didn't tell anyone because it wasn't for them," she said, her voice eerily calm. "It was never about the HOA, or the rules or any of that. It was always about finding this." She gestured toward the widening sinkhole. "This is something bigger than you or me, bigger than any of us." Emily's mind raced. She had been so caught up in the mystery of Cindy's obsession with the tunnel that she hadn't stopped to consider the larger implications. What if Cindy hadn't just discovered something hidden beneath her backyard? What if she had been chosen for this? Her father, the mysterious military man, could have all been part of a larger plan. Before Emily could ask more questions, the ground gave way beneath them. The sinkhole split open with a deafening crash, and the earth seemed to swallow everything around them. Soldiers yelled, scrambling to escape, but the sinkhole's pull was too powerful. In an instant, everything vanished.